Here with you over the international airwaves of ESPN Radio, ESPN News, 250 plus markets across the United States of America, plus ESPN Radio on Sirius XM Channel 80, plus ESPN Radio simulcast over the live national television airwaves of ESPN News. The hunt for the playoffs is on. Tune in tonight as Bryce Harper and the Philadelphia Phillies visit the Washington Nationals, presented by Scotts. Coverage begins at 6:30 p.m. Eastern on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. Also, for the biggest concerts and games to the hottest theater shows and more, Vivid Seats has it all. Download the app and join the Vivid Seats Rewards loyalty program today. Always great to have my next guest on the line, former Super Bowl champion with the Pittsburgh Steelers, analyst extraordinaire for ESPN, contributor to First Take. Catch him on NFL Live. Catch him on SportsCenter after the games on Sundays, probably Mondays too. I won't get on him about LSU or being a former Washington Redskins. I'm talking about the one and only Ryan Clark. He's on the line with me right now. What's up, man?
What's up, big brother? How you doing, man?
Before I even get into some NFL stuff, I must say your LSU Tigers are 4-0. I must say that.
Good.
I must say that. But I must also say this. I'm not impressed. So you go up against Texas and you need 45 points to win because you gave up 38, and you go up against Vanderbilt, even though you scored 66 on them, you really gave up 38 points to Vanderbilt? I mean, how are you feeling about LSU right now, Ryan Clark?
I can say this, Stephen A. We both know only thing that matters is what happens November 9th.
Okay.
And looking at this team and looking at this defense, it makes me nervous. When you have to stop Jerry Jeudy, Henry Ruggs Jr., Jalen Waddle, D. Smith, and Tua Tagovailoa, like, you have to be able to stop people. And it does make me worried when Sam Ehlinger can throw for 400 yards and when they do give up over 30 to Vanderbilt. Because even if we can score points, that means we just lose in a different way this year than we have other years to Alabama. So that has to tighten up before we go down there, because it'll be another year where we get all excited and then it doesn't come through because we can't beat the team in Tuscaloosa.
Ryan Clark right here with Stephen A., ESPN Radio, ESPN News. Let's get to the NFL, your forte, your level of expertise as well. I saw you on TV bragging this morning. I saw you. You were on TV on Get Up with Mike Greenberg, and he re-aired some clips dating back to August where you were talking about, we've seen enough from the preseason alone. Start Daniel Jones now. Don't wait. Put him in a lineup now. He's going to be pretty damn good. And obviously Pat Sherman, the Giants, ultimately waited until week 3, but they did it. And he showed out in his first game. So now Ryan Clark looks like a prophet. Tell the audience your thoughts and feelings about Daniel Jones. Why so gung-ho about him? How you feeling now?
You know, Stephen A., I was with all of you guys when they drafted him, though. At least I love Dwayne Haskins. I thought he should have been picked 6 to the New York Giants. But then I watched Daniel Jones handle himself throughout the offseason when everybody was down on the pick and saying that Dave Gettleman reached for him. You never heard anything out of him. He just went to work and showed the Giants that he was the guy they drafted him to be. And then you get into training camp when he starts to play well in preseason games, and our own Dianna Russini basically tried to force him into saying he should be the starter. All he talked about was how much better he needed to get, how much more he needed to learn. So he showed me that he had the disposition to be a starting quarterback in New York. You know you have to be different. You can't have thin skin. You can't be the Mark Sanchez type of personality. And then with what he did in the preseason, sometimes just getting smashed and coming right back and standing in the pocket, throwing down the barrel and making big plays throughout, I just felt like the guy had it. And then to see him come out in his first regular season game, get down 18 points, not get nervous, not lose composure, but bring his team back to win. You haven't seen quarterback play like that for the New York Giants in years, and I know it's a welcome sight for all the fans.
Ryan Clark right here with Stephen A., ESPN Radio, ESPN News. So what happened to the notion, Ryan Clark, it's just one game? And it was against Tampa, who's making adjustments. They were doing a cover 2 last year. This year they're in a 3-4 with Todd Bowles blitzing all day, every day. That's his basic forte, particularly out of the 4-3. What about the fact that it's one game and it was against a Tampa Bay Buccaneers team that's not going to be confused by anybody for being the best elite team defense in the game?
No, absolutely. I understand that. It is just one game. But I do want to make this point, Stephen A. There was two things that changed about the New York Giants offense on Sunday that's been different from what has been the last year. One thing is Daniel Jones was the quarterback, Eli Manning was not, and their best player, Saquon Barkley, wasn't even playing. For 2 games this season, this team didn't look like it knew how to score points. This team didn't seem like it would even have a chance to win a football game. And Daniel Jones changed that. We haven't watched the New York Giants move the ball efficiently through the passing game the way that they did with Daniel Jones. And it's the same people, Stephen A. We haven't seen a quarterback run a zone read and pull the ball and outrun the nickelback of any team. I don't care if it's Tampa Bay or if it's the New York Jets. He's added something different to what the New York Giants can do offensively, both schematically, execution-wise. And so when you can do that, it's meant for you to be out there. I'm not saying he's going to be a gangbuster and go to the Pro Bowl this year, but what I am saying is Daniel Jones has the skills to be extremely successful for the New York Giants.
Ryan Clark, when we look around the National Football League right now, what quarterback has really surprised you the most in terms of how they've performed?
Gardner Minshew, and I know that's not the sexy pick, Stephen A., and I know it's also kind of easy to say it, and it was Lamar Jackson very early on in the year, but Gardner Minshew, and I'll see if you agree or disagree, Gardner Minshew looks to me like what I thought Baker Mayfield would be.
Yeah.
I thought the way that he brings energy to this team, his accuracy in throwing the ball down the field, if not for 3 drops by D.D. Westbrook on Thursday, he throws for over 300 yards
without
and
question,
adds another touchdown. And so to watch this kid play and the excitement that he's brought to the game, this is what I expected to be seeing in Cleveland. So to be comparing a 6th-round pick in this draft to the number 1 overall pick of last draft and the Heisman winner, that's something I never would have been prepared to do. We weren't even expecting this man to be the backup in Jacksonville, and now he's a starter. I truly believe, had he been the backup to Blake Bortles last year and played this way, that Nick Foles wouldn't even be a Jacksonville Jaguar right now, because this guy is showing us he's a very, very good NFL starting quarterback.
Gardner Minshew, 65 of 88, 73.9 completion percentage, 692 yards, 5 touchdowns, just 1 interceptions, and a quarterback rating of 110 in what essentially amounts to a game and a half for the Jacksonville Jaguars. You're listening to Ryan Clark right here with Stephen A. ESPN Radio, ESPN News. With that being said, how does that have you feeling about the Jacksonville Jaguars, particularly with news coming down that Jalen Ramsey now has a back issue, couldn't practice, and probably won't play this Sunday? Your thoughts about all that?
So I was definitely with Jalen Ramsey on being sick, because being sick was something that you can prove. And now you have this back issue. And I know Doug Marrone has tried to, play it off that, hey, there's nothing going on with Jalen. This is just things that happen. This starts to make you wonder, is this relationship that Shad Khan wants to mend even something that can be repaired? And so when this team loses Jalen Ramsey, it's not the same team defensively. You don't have that guy that can just stand across from other number one wide receivers on each team and clamp down and lock up and give you freedom to do everything. So I do think that it hurts their chances to compete in many situations. I think on the bright side for the Jacksonville Jaguars, Stephen A., I didn't expect them to go to the playoffs anyway. This wasn't a team that I saw could win the AFC South. I think the Houston Texans are the cream of that division. I also think the Indianapolis Colts are a better team right now than the Jacksonville Jaguars. But it does tell me that they're fighting a fight they can't win with Jalen Ramsey, and it feels like he gave them the one game that he was willing to give them. He wants to stick to the trade request, and he's going to, at least from what it looks like now, make sure he makes that happen.
How do you feel as a former player that now obviously follows the game as a commentator and pundit? How do you feel about the notion that a player under contract in the National Football League can go to an ownership group and says he wants out and exert that kind of muscle purely and simply because he can't stand the executive running the organization?
It's one of those things. It's so foreign to my era of football, to the football that I played. It feels a little strange, and I want to be the old dude that's like, get off my porch. You shouldn't do this. But as a member of the NFLPA, I love it. I love it that these guys can now take their careers into their own hands. I love it that they can now exert some sort of power and have at least an option to point their careers in the directions that they like them to go for their happiness, not necessarily for their success on the field, but just to be happy, to be comfortable, because so many times we are made to feel like you don't have that option, that the separation of ownership and labor is so vast that you have no control over where you are, how you play, and who you play for. And players are showing now that, at least some players are showing now that they're willing to stick their necks on the chopping block, willing to be perceived in whatever way they have to be perceived in order to play in places and do things that they want to do. And it's different. If I was a teammate of some of these guys, I think I would feel some way about it because I would want us to all be in it together. But as a former player and a former PA member, I feel like this is a good thing for players now because at least they have some type of voice.
Yeah, but what I'm asking is, and I get that part, and I appreciate that answer, Ryan Clark, but what I'm asking is, do you think it improves or jeopardizes Jalen Ramsey's chances of getting out of Jacksonville? Because an owner like Shad Khan, maybe not him, but typically an owner might sit up there and say, if we capitulate to this because he doesn't like Tom Coughlin, that's just opening a Pandora's box we don't want opened.
No, it really is. I totally understand that. And I think this becomes a situation or a example of, okay, who is going to bend first? Because if Jalen Ramsey's back is hurting, honestly, it's hard to prove that, Stephen A. It's hard to tell him that he has to go out and play. And you actually can't tell him that he has to go out and play. And so now you're keeping a player on your team. You're paying a player that doesn't want to be there and is also not providing you with anything that allows or helps you to win. And so it comes to a head where you say, okay, is it better to get the picks for this guy and move on before he ruins that? Or do we just hold on to him out of spite? And these owners are businessmen. That's not going to make money. That's not smart ways to invest money. And so I think we're going to have to see who steps up in this situation and who makes things, go into the direction they want to, because we've seen Antonio Brown make maneuvers. Now you have Jalen Ramsey doing the same thing. Ezekiel Elliott holds out when he has 2 years left on his contract and still gets his money. Minkah Fitzpatrick asks for a trade, and he's traded to Pittsburgh. We are seeing ownerships and organizations bend to the will of these players. I don't know if it stops on this one.
Ryan Clark right here with Stephen A., ESPN Radio, ESPN News. Melvin Gordon, according to Adam Schefter, is thinking about coming back and, ending his holdout with the Los Angeles Chargers. You like that?
I do like that. I like that for him in the sense of I don't think it was something he can win. I just don't think Melvin Gordon was going to get the contract that he wanted to get. There weren't many people that were willing to trade for him, give the Chargers what they would want, and also do a deal that fit what Melvin Gordon's needs seem to be. And so you can't just sit at home and not collect checks. You want to go out there and try to put good film out there and show people that, you can still play, show people that you are worth the money that you're getting. And on the other side of it, right now, the Chargers are 1-2. Eckler and Jackson have played well, but they haven't played to an all-pro potential. And Melvin Gordon can come in, change this running game, make more plays, score more touchdowns, and show this team his worth and also the other teams in the league by changing the trajectory of this season as it is early for the Los Angeles Chargers and saying, hey, you know what? I belong in that Ezekiel Elliott, Le'Veon Bell, Todd Gurley realm of contract.
But is that why he's doing it, Ryan Clark? Or is he doing it because the two running backs, Jackson and Eckler, are there? They're doing their thing, and that might be the reason he's coming back a little bit early.
I think that's a part of it.
Yeah, they haven't looked bad.
I think that's a part of it. Eckler's played really well. Justin Jackson is somebody they already like. He got injured in his rookie year, so now they get an opportunity to see what he can do on game day. And the worst thing you can ever do, Stephen A., is allow people to know that they're better off without you. You know, you can't be that person in a relationship that says, you know what, I'm gonna walk out and leave and show them how miserable they are without me, and then go let your former partner shine. And so for him, he's looking at it and saying, okay, these guys together have done what I could do for the Los Angeles Chargers. They aren't necessarily hurting from the running back position in the running game nor passing game. And so now you have opportunity to make a decision that puts you back into the fold. You know you'll be the number one guy, and maybe you can go out and prove to them that you are a step above or a tier above where these guys are.
Are you worried about Cam Newton?
I am. I most certainly am. One, because I'm a fan. I just love the way that he plays ball. I love the physicality he brings to the position, and I also love the way that he's excelled at it and doing it in a style of play that is unique to him. With that style comes a lot of unnecessary hits. And I also blame it on the way that Cam Newton has been officiated for a very long time. Some of the hits that other quarterbacks don't take in the pocket without them being flagged or without guys being fined, Cam Newton has been subjected to that. I think that also plays a part in his, premature deterioration. But for me right now, to watch him go from where he was through the first half of the season last year to where he is as a quarterback as we sit today, inaccuracies, the inability to throw the deep ball, not being able to run the ball and gain the extra yards that we're used to seeing. I think he needs to, they're talking about it being a Liz Frank injury. I think Cam Newton needs to sit out until he's 100%, until he's fully healthy, because what he puts on film will be evaluated for what it is and who he is. It won't be a part of the injury.
Ryan Clark, injuries can provide an in-depth explanation as to what we've seen from Cam Newton. How do you explain what we've seen from the Atlanta Falcons led by Matt Ryan?
I just think that Dan Quinn has lost that team. Obviously, there were some injuries last year that put them in the position that they were in. You come in this year, you keep Dan Quinn and Raheem Morris. This team is finding ways to lose games. You go back to Indianapolis and you're playing Jacoby Brissett, and that team, you're not stopping the run. Keanu Neal goes out again with an Achilles injury. But when you have Matt Ryan, who's one of the highest paid quarterbacks in this league, who has made just a boatload of money, you give Julio Jones $66 million. You have Calvin Ridley. You're supposed to be able to score points and make the important plays to win games, as we saw them do against Philadelphia. But just remember, save from a drop pass by Nelson Aguilar, they lose that game as well. And so for them, they have to find ways to be better and put games away more quickly.
Ryan Clark right here with Stephen A., ESPN Radio, ESPN News. Your Steelers, is this season over? They're 0-3.
I think it is. I believe it is. And it's over from the expectations that we put on the Pittsburgh Steelers. Mason Rudolph did have two very big throws in the San Francisco game, one a run and catch by Juju Smith-Schuster, another down the sideline to Deontay Johnson. But other than that, he couldn't create. The run game has taken a step back as Mike Munchak has moved on to go coach elsewhere. And this team just can't produce offensively. If you're playing San Francisco with the quarterback at Jimmy G, who just, frankly, to me, is just not what he was before the injury, and you get 5 turnovers and you still lose, that's an issue. And that's an issue that I don't know is quickly fixed.
You just said something interesting about Jimmy G. Are you saying that you don't feel as high on him as you used to?
I don't. I was never one that actually jumped on the bandwagon with Jimmy G. I was kind of in a holding pattern on seeing him play a little bit longer. But there was an interception he threw week 1 that was just a bad read. That touchdown to Pettis to win the game was actually another bad read. The 2 interceptions, even though they were tips, were throws that were off the mark. And in watching this team play, the run game is exceptional. They're great in the pass rush. Defense is playing really well. But Jimmy G is holding this team back. Jimmy G is putting this team in a position when they should be blowing people out. Obviously, they did beat the Bengals very well. When they should be blowing people out and pulling away in games, as they should have against the Pittsburgh Steelers, because they are the better team on paper. They have the better roster. Jimmy G is not allowing that. And Kyle Shanahan can scheme up anything he wants. He can do the things that he needs to do to win games. But when you're playing the Rams and you're playing the Seattle Seahawks, who are 2 teams in your division, When it gets down to crunch time and I have to choose between Jared Goff or Russell Wilson and Jimmy G, you're taking those other two guys every time, and that doesn't bode well for your playoff chances.
Well, keep in mind that for the purposes of this show, Ryan Clark, we call him Porn Star Jimmy. That's his name. It's Porn Star Jimmy. It's not Jimmy G.
I'm not fooling with you,
It's
man.
not Jimmy. It's Porn Star Jimmy. He's the one that went out in Hollywood with paparazzis watching with a porn star. And I'm not knocking him for it, Ryan Clark. Who am I to judge? I'm not knocking him. I'm not knocking him at all. But it is apropos to call him Porn Star Jimmy. My last question to you, my man. Dallas Cowboys, are you about to tell me they're the best team in the NFC? Is that what you're about to tell me?
They're the best team in the NFC, period.
Even when you watch what Chicago did to Washington on Monday night with that defense?
Stephen A., you and me can go out and do that to Washington with that defense.
Yeah.
And we're both old. Listen, Dak Prescott is playing at a level that I'll be honest, I never expected him to play. He's playing better than Carson Wentz. He's playing better than Jared Goff, the top two picks in the same draft that he was in. This defense has come so far by drafting the right way. Jalen Smith, Van Der Esch, and now you have rushers on the outside, two corners that can play press man. This team is complete top to bottom. Great coaching by Kellen Moore, the offensive coordinator, and Chris Richard defensively as a defensive coordinator. And I think one of those guys will replace Jason Garrett if Jerry Jones moves on. This team is complete. It's the most complete Dallas Cowboy team I think we've seen in 2 decades, and this team has an opportunity to represent the NFC in the Super Bowl. And I believe whether it's Kansas City, if it's New England or wherever it is, I also think they have a chance to beat that team as well.
If you had to bet your money right now, who would it be, Kansas City or New England, to meet them?
New England. I think New England is just better defensively, and as much as I love Andy Reid, I think they're better coached.
Yeah, you were raving about the Cowboys just a few minutes ago. I know it's time for you to go. Appreciate you, man. Thanks a lot, Ryan.
I'm a boy.
Take it easy. My man Ryan Clark right here with Stephen A. ESPN Radio, ESPN News. You can catch him on NFL Live. You can certainly catch him on First Take. You can catch him on SportsCenter on Sunday nights, Monday nights after the game, breaking stuff down. The brother's gifted, no question about it. Love having him on the show. Always appreciate him. That was Ryan Clark for ESPN right here with the Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio, ESPN News. 888-SAY. ESPN is always the number to call up. It's 888-729-3776. Up next, he is the welterweight champion of the world. Pound for pound, one of the best